Welcome to the Business SOS podcast. This is Rich Sierra, president of the Florida Small Business Legal Center. This is episode 78 of Business SOS. We're very excited that you're here with us this morning. Today is Thanksgiving weekend, so happy Thanksgiving to all of you, and thank you for listening. Today we have a very special guest. I'm very excited that we have David Kinigson with us. He's the author of The Power of Asking What. Before I ask questions, I want to give you a little background on David. I'm very excited that I read his book, and you're going to recommend this book to all of our listeners. David is a renowned leader in personal development and transformational education. With over 40 years of experience, his career spanned roles such as creative director, educator, keynote speaker, consultant, mentor, and career coach. His methodology blends his background in arts, academics, and life experiences to inspire individuals and organizations to overcome challenges and achieve sustainable success. Not only he's the author of The Power of Asking What, but he's also the author of The Haircutter's Handbook. He's a sought-after speaker, having delivered presentations on topics like the anatomy of the comfort zone, the power of asking what, and mindset in action. Known for fostering transformation, David empowers individuals to embrace authenticity, take meaningful actions, and lead fulfilling lives. David, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Rich. Great to be here.
Very excited that you're here today with us. And today this is the first part of 2 episodes that we're going to be doing and talking about your book. In fact, I can do a whole episode on one particular chapter. So before we start, let's start with this question. What inspired you to write The Power of Asking What?
It's a great question. I love that question, and it's at the heart of the book. As human beings, we're grounded in certain principles and dynamics, and over the course of COVID, it became clear to me, spending some time on platforms like Clubhouse, that not only were there a lot of coaches, but they were asking questions about why we are the way that we are and why we do what we do. And being someone who's been involved in transformational studies and leadership skills for a great many decades, why is a kind of junior question. It might be an entry-level question, but pick a reason why. Any reason will do, but you'll always ask what, among other questions. Who, what, when, where, but why is really incidental. So I wrote The Power of Asking What as a counterpoint to what is your why, and I gave more focus on the power of asking what questions. And that was really the impetus of the book, and I wrote it during lockdown.
Yeah. What I like about the book is you really go into specifics, really more into action plans, and really go into asking more questions and being introspective and more self-reflection. One of the chapters of the book, you talk about the conversation. What is the conversation? And you talk about 3 core conversations back in your life. Can you tell me more about those?
Sure. So life happens inside of conversations that we have. And we have conversations with others. We have conversations with ourselves. And it's really, those conversations are the context or the mindset for what gives us being. Some conversations are designed for people to give us sympathy or to buy into our woe is me type of life. And other conversations are designed to empower people and give them the opportunity to overcome challenges and fears. So when I do the kind of coaching that I do, when I interact one-on-one or group, it's called conversational coaching. And so I listen for the aspect of the conversation that you're generating and whether or not it's empowering you to accomplish your goals, overcome your challenges and your fears, or is it one that's counterproductive to what you say you want out of life. So it's really about expanding the conversation so that it's more aligned with overcoming challenges and fears and accomplishing your goals.
That is very good. Before we go deeper into the book, tell me a little bit more about your personal story and how you got here.
Yeah, sure. I'm one of my favorite topics to talk about. I have no issue with that, and I enjoy it because I'm inspired by what it can bring for other people. At 19 years old, I really didn't know what I wanted to do with life, and I had a very limited perception of what was available to me. And I knew I could be in retail, or I could be an English teacher, and it was a very predictable future. And I talk about that in my book, and it's something called an inherent mindset. And an inherent mindset is one that gives you a very limited and predictable future, but not one that's of your creation or your design, until something happens and you have that kind of aha moment where I saw for myself the future, and it was in a hair salon. And I looked around and I saw these people having a great time. And I thought, this looks like fun. I could do this. I could do this. I can do this. And in that moment, my mindset shifted to one that was given by an inspiring future. The future that I, in that moment, saw for myself. And that is the moment I created an inspirational mindset. And I've been a hairdresser now for 50 years. I'm a leader in my field. I'm an author of a couple of books on hair and obviously The Power of Asking What. I teach advanced haircutting, and I've done editorial for the magazines, and I've been an inspirational speaker. But concurrent with that 50-year career in hair, I've also had a 50-year parallel career in personal development and what I call transformational studies, metaphysics. And so life has always been about, for me, discovering who I need to be and what do I need to do to provide transformation and the opportunity for growth for others. And that's where all of my life is directed from, both hair and what the possibility of being alive can be for people.
You know, I think I told you this before. My mom was a hairdresser.
I know.
I think she owned a beauty shop in Puerto Rico called Rose Coiffure, and she ran it for 30 years until she moved to the States, and then she worked there. I think COVID is what basically got her retired. Even during COVID, at one time, she snuck out of the house to do somebody's hair.
That's
and
so
then came back. So, yeah, hairdressers have a lot of fun, and when I was a kid, I was hanging around the beauty shop. So,
Sure.
you know,
And her name's Rosa?
Rosa, yes.
My grandmother's name is Rose,
Yes,
and I
yeah.
have a rose tattooed to my
Okay.
arm.
You know, I should get a tattoo.
That would be nice.
We'll talk about that another time.
All right.
Maybe segment number 3.
Maybe.
Sharon is back there laughing, and so is Michelle. We have a live studio audience here. The beautiful wives are here, you know, sharing the day with us. What got you involved in personal development? What was your passion to get in? How did you get involved in it?
Well, I was pretty much the wise guy of the family. I'm the oldest of 4 boys, and I was really, I guess, a troubled kid. I cut school a lot, and, you know, I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that, and my parents were a little concerned about my predictable future. And my parents, both my mother and my father, were involved in early 1970s personal development programs. They participated in Marriage Encounter, and then they did the S training. And at 19, they introduced me to it, and I predictably told them where they could go, and I didn't do it. However, I did see the growth and development that my parents were having, and not only between the two of them, but how they were affecting me. And my relationship, particularly with my father, which had traditionally not been a very good one, started to become outstanding, but I didn't want to let on. And they were persistent in wanting me to take my first personal development program, and I was fairly a hard sell. And at 21, I took the S training, and I saw what the possibility was of living a transformed life, one where you take responsibility for yourself, a life where you communicate, where you aspire to having a certain kind of integrity in your life. And I was off and running, and then I'm a fairly autodidactic person, and I began reading a great deal on so many topics, and I led programs on so many other topics, and that's how I got into it. I have to thank my parents for introducing me to my first programs on personal development.
Yeah, I think personal development is very important. In college, I read many of the books, and I read Ziegler.
Yesterday was my mother's birthday. Sorry.
Oh, happy birthday! I read Zig Ziglar. I read Tony Robbins. Especially in the 80s and 90s, he was upcoming, and I read many of his books. Many of them have yours is different. And I'm going to read a quote here that I really like that stood out to me. And it says that doing the work of self-awareness affords us the opportunity to overcome our challenges, fears, and self-imposed limitations, and in turn, the freedom to create, manifest, attract, and accomplish.
Correct.
I mean, you hit it right there. I mean, one thing that, and I read some other positive thinking books, and you can do positive thinking, but if you don't do the work, nothing is going to happen.
Exactly. It's all about doing the work. And I'm flattered. That's a great quote. And where it comes from is my observation of people that we aspire to. So certain things lend themselves to example, and we can look to celebrities and athletes and people who have great success, whether it's in finance or entertainment or technology. They have great success, and we admire these people for that success. And there are a certain finite, really, characteristics that they all share. If you look at them all, whether they be Tiger Woods, Beyonce, Steve Jobs, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Madonna, Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift, Serena Williams. If you look to all of these people, they share a particular set of qualities, and they're attainable for those of us who may or may not have those qualities. And the first thing, not the first thing because you have to start with something, not because it's the first thing, but they all, might as well be the first thing, have a future that I talked about when I was 19. They all saw something at a young age. They said, I can do that. And when you see something for yourself, whether it's golf, tennis, or music, or writing, or hair, when you see something for yourself in the future that gives you passion, gives you being, inspires you in the present, that sets in motion. That is an inspirational mindset that sets into motion the choices that you make and the actions that you take to deal with what comes down the pike in life. And the second thing that they all share, besides that inspirational future, is because that is giving them their existence as challenges and obstacles and fears, self-imposed fears and limitations present themselves, they have a remarkable ability to take responsibility for those things and overcome them. Every single one of them overcame challenges, obstacles, fears. But because the future that was so inspiring to them was giving them who they are, their ability to overcome those challenges and fears was unquestionable. And so what my book is about developing an inspirational mindset, being given by a future that is inspiring to you. Because most of us didn't do that. I mean, most of us are just simply not Muhammad Ali. We're not Beyonce. We're just like ordinary.
Yes.
So, but it is possible to be extraordinary. And that's what the book is about. It's about a future that gives you inspiration in the present such that you're able to overcome challenges and fears as they arise, because the people that you admire, that's what they did. That's all that they did. They hardly ever complain. You really don't hear Taylor Swift or Madonna or Muhammad Ali or Tiger Woods. Doesn't really matter. Steve Jobs, he never complained about. They don't complain. They take responsibility for, and they have an ability to overcome their challenges and fears, and that gives them a whole new set of actions that they take. And that's what my book's about, empowering people to do just what the people they admire do in life.
It's also about resiliency and perseverance.
Absolutely.
Those are key traits, especially you were trying to overcome challenges and pursue your goals that inspire you. You have to persevere. You got to be resilient. You have to be able to get up when you fall down. It's just, otherwise you're not going to make it. Our audience are business owners. So how can business owners develop an inspirational mindset?
Well, here's the thing. I think it's important to recognize something that I recognized a number of years ago, and that is that I'm an incredibly challenged individual. And I think that if a person, a business leader, can recognize that they have challenges in life, that is a very, very empowering place to come from. There's a certain kind of mindset, ego set, a certain kind of person that wants to be a business leader or a leader in any field. And while we can all be leaders, and anyone at any point in their life, in their career, at their job can be a leader, not everybody can be the leader. And so when someone takes the mantle of being the leader, they have all these good ideas. And I think that if they introduced something very essential for themselves and then for the people that they're going to manage, this distinction that I call the pause to reflect. See, if you have all these ideas and you want to get them done as the leader, you might not pause. And one of the key things that I find very empowering and very freeing is to recognize that I'm an incredibly challenged individual and that I rely on the kindness of strangers.
We all do.
And so when a leader enters into perhaps that collective conversation, they might want to find out what is important to the people that they manage, so that they're more able to get an alignment between what's important to them as the entrepreneur, as the leader, and the people that they're going to rely on to fulfill on their vision or their purpose. So I would say to pause, take a moment to take stock, what's going on with you, what's important to others, and begin to ask what questions. What's important to you is a great place to start.
That's a great point. One thing that I find out, and perhaps I'm the example, when you start a business, you start because you're inspired. Going into business for yourself is a very risky proposition. There are just so many things that can go wrong. And in many cases, they go wrong. In fact, half of the business don't make it. It's just a reality for a number of different factors. So is it possible to go from an inspirational mindset to the inherent mindset, kind of go back and forth?
Absolutely. Well, you see, first of all, unless you're Beyonce, unless you're Serena Williams, for the most part, we all created an inherent mindset. An inherent mindset's really simple. It's a predictable future. It's given by a predictable future, and it's limited, predictable, and rather than develop an ability to overcome challenges and fears, we really mostly learn to survive. So in the background is this inherent mindset that's part of your...
That's a default.
It's pretty much the default. It's your neuro-linguistical, neuro-educational, neuro-learning wiring. And so what you are constantly doing is discovering what you're not aware of. And that's the pause. The pause to reflect is really at the heart of everything. So yes, when you find yourself in a pattern, when you find yourself repeating habits and behaviors that you've done before, chances are that you're not in your inspirational mode. And so it's a good idea to pause and reflect and come to know yourself. The whole idea is to know yourself under situations that are adverse. Know yourself under situations where you're up against it. When everything's working, it's working. But it's knowing the habits, the patterns, the body sensations, the emotions, the feelings, the predictable ways of being, the facial expressions that we make, how we are when we're private, you know, and when we're talking to ourselves, when we're having that conversation with ourselves, where we're being right about something, where we're justifying something. And so it's always that challenge. But that's what the people we admire have learned to do since they were 8 or 10. You know, Bruce Springsteen was asked, you know, this is like legend has it, that Bruce Springsteen was asked by a young woman, songwriter, what he does before his show when he's talking to himself and he wonders if the audience is going to like him, or when he has butterflies, or his breathing gets heavy, you know, how does he get rid of it? And he says, oh, I don't get rid of it, because that's when I know it's time to go on. And so it's not that they don't have the same body sensations, emotions, but they have a different conversation about it. They have a different relationship to things like that. They have a different relationship for time than we do. Most of us go through life having a very poor relationship to time. There's never enough of it. On the other hand, these people who accomplish amazing things have the same amount of time we do.
That's correct.
It's no more time. So it's kind of a relative thing, as Einstein said. So as a leader, you are always battling that, and you want to dance with yourself. You want to give yourself a break. You want to actually know that that's part of your process. And then you can kind of say, oh man, that's me doing that again. I get angry when I am behind on a deadline. Pause, and it's in that pause that you discover that. And in that moment, you have a choice. In that next moment, you have a choice. Do I be this way or that way? So life's always a choice. It's always a dance. And however good you are at it is how much you practice.
Yeah, you have to be comfortable with
or
pressure.
do the work, as we said.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to be comfortable with pressure in order to break through. And I was going to ask you a question about breakthrough. How do you break through if you're in the inherent mindset? How do you break through to get to the inspirational mindset?
Well, you know, through what I call linear learning. So it's the practice of one moment after the next, after the next, after the next. You know, there's quantum learning where you can have that's a breakthrough, where you're here at one moment and then, aha, we have a breakthrough and you're no longer here. You are a quantum leap away. And we all know we've had breakthroughs. We all know that we can talk about them. I had that moment. But most of us don't know how to cause a breakthrough at will. In fact, even the people that we admire, their ability to cause a breakthrough at will may or may not be any greater than yours or mine. So we know that we've had breakthroughs. We know that we want to have them, but we don't necessarily know how to cause a breakthrough, right? And so what you can do is set the stage for a breakthrough. And that would be by doing the work of one alteration of a habit, one slight change over a period of time. like 28 days to a quarter. So if you want to have a breakthrough in something, but you don't know how to cause it instantaneously, what do you do? How do you do it? You do the next thing that's in front of you. You know, you have a goal. You have a challenge to that goal. And then you take an action, an intentional action that's designed to overcome the challenge that would have you accomplish the goal. And you set out to do that. One action at a time for 28 days, and you have a new habit. That sets the stage for breakthroughs. It's a whole other conversation rather than explanations, excuses, reasons why it didn't turn out.
You talk about repetition. One of the stories that jumped out at me was, which I related to, and as you know, we're both students of the martial arts. We're both black belts in Taekwondo. My wife also is a black belt in Taekwondo as well. The study of the martial arts, and the story you talk about the students, about sparring and how one was struggling, and but they both improved. And I love I love martial art. I've been doing martial arts since I'm 9 years old, and then on and off. And fortunately, I have 2 different black belts in judo and taekwondo. But the principles of the martial arts teaching are the same: successful repetition, and you gradually, get better. And one of the things you said, that anybody can get better at something if you try. But in terms of breakthrough, what I find out is that you sometimes don't recognize how much you are improving. Your instructor does, but you don't see it. We've been doing this for many years, and sometimes you go to class and say, I'm not getting better, I'm not getting better, I'm not getting better. But you are. And then when you are assigned to teach a white belt or a lower ranked belt, you realize how much you have improved. Or when a technique, you're competing, or when you're sparring with somebody and something clicks and works. You've practiced it for 10 years, and all of a sudden it becomes natural and it becomes automatic. That's when you realize, yes, I broke through, I got it. And we don't realize that what it takes. And when we go to different martial arts schools, we see the black belts and the expertise that they have. We're like, we're never going to get there. But we might be able to get there if we practice enough. But we're going to get better at our own pace. But I realize that when we are teaching younger ranks or people that are lower ranks, how much really we know. But we don't see it toward ourselves. Do you find that to be true, as people don't realize how much they have actually improved? Whether it's music, martial arts, or.
Well, you've touched on so many points. First of all, we don't see our improvements like watching a child grow. Yeah. You don't see every day, but when grandma and grandpa come over and haven't maybe seen them for a while, like, oh my God, you've grown. So it's kind of like that. And one can have an inspirational mindset about anything at any time. And when you start out as a white belt in martial arts, you compare yourself to the other people around you. And that's kind of human, that's kind of natural, but it's also a pitfall to compare yourself to others, and we often compare ourselves to ourselves, usually a younger version of ourselves. We will compare ourselves to as we get older. But you can always invent an inspirational mindset, and that's seeing a future for yourself. So if you enter into the martial arts and the future that you have for yourself is a black belt within a period of time, then it is that future that gives you the training. It gives you the work. It's what's inspiring or informing the work that you do, called training. And that's important. So as you enter into projects, whatever project it may be, whether it's your garden or a black belt, entering into it for a future that inspires you in the present will empower you to overcome the challenges and fears that you face. And I owe it to my Shabam Nim, my Kwangjun Nim, the owner, the proprietor of the Taekwondo dojang that I went to, where many of us dealt with this, which is how come somebody who's not as good, or apparently not as good as someone else, gets to advance. But the difference is how a 19-year-old advances is very different than how a 50-year-old man, who they might have started at the same time, but how they improve is remarkably different. But it's the improvement that my master was pointing us to, not how high you could kick, but the improvement that people were having. And it's interesting how when the two of them might fight, how often the older, less flexible black belt might win over a younger black belt who could kick higher but had not as much wisdom. So these are the kinds of things that you've touched upon, and I think in everything that we do, having an inspirational mindset to overcome the challenges and fears that we face will make a difference. And then the last thing that you touched upon is, is what I call the playground for mastery. And the playground for mastery in any field is sharing the knowledge that you have with another, because you have to examine what you take for granted in such a way that they can get it. And when you do, share it effectively with a lower belt, to keep in the analogy that you were using, then your ability to learn has expanded, because it's in the teaching of another that you have the opportunity to really go beyond what you've learned in the past, but that's the playground for mastery. So you opened up such great distinctions in your question.
No, thank you. Have a few more minutes before we close this segment. Talk to me about comfort zone. And I know we can do a whole segment in comfort zone. Comfort zone.
Oh. Well, we could, and I don't know how much time we have, but so I don't necessarily want to go too deep into it, but we all have a relationship with our comfort zone, which is it's a familiar feeling. It's a familiar and relaxed feeling. There's no risk, there's no urgency, and everything is pretty okie dokie. And we return to our comfort zone, those familiar feelings, those familiar emotions, because they are comfortable, and that's why it's the comfort zone. And that is really our box. That is the box. When we say inside the box, that's the box. But there's a flip side to the comfort zone that we don't necessarily acknowledge or even aware of. I don't think many people talk about it. Never really heard about it, so it may be something that someone else shared elsewhere, but it's a kind of original thought that I had, that there was a flip side to the comfort zone that wasn't so comfortable, that I call the discomfort zone. And why I say that it's the comfort zone, that the discomfort zone is the comfort zone, as well as those familiar, like tepid feelings of wonderment, called the comfort zone, is because we return to them, because they're familiar. And when we're in the discomfort zone, things aren't working, but we go back to them. So we go back to what's not comfortable, just as much as we go back to what's familiar and comfortable. So it's this vicious circle of comfort zone that I call the tepid zone, where you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I think beyond that, the one thing that I'll say to close out this segment until next time, the cliffhanger, as it were, is that if you could take on one intentional action, just one, and I have this 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 goals, 1, 2, 3 challenges, 1, 2, 3 intentional actions. If you could take on one intentional action that could impact your whole entire life, I would invite your audience, I would invite everyone to take on the practice of, for a day, for a week, for 28 days, give up your right to explain. yourself. To explain why. We started this with what had me write the book, and I mentioned as human beings. As human beings, we live in a world of reasons why. And that's why this book is counterpointed to that pedestrian way of interacting with oneself. We are already grounded in reasons why. It's the way that it is. The justifications. The excuses. Why it's the way that it is. So I invite people to give up explaining why, offering their reasons why, excuses, and I'm going to share with you a common universal experience to show you how grounded we are in it and how come it's no good, how it's not of service to you. When you might have been late one time for a meeting or to work, and you were on your way frantically getting there, most of us rehearse what we're going to say to the authority that we're in question to, right? And when they say, why were you late, we want to have a good reason why. Because if you have a good reason why, you get let off the hook in life. So if I was late to the meeting and it was because I forgot to set my alarm, that's not a very good reason why, and you're in trouble. On the other hand, if your baby was ill or your mommy was sick, that's a very good reason why, and you might get let off the hook. So we live in a world, the conversation we traffic in is designed to keep us small. And it begins with giving up the right, your human right, to explain why, reasons why, justifications, and excuses. So I invite on this grateful, thankful weekend, as we enter the holiday season of giving thanks and gratitude and taking stock of our blessings, to take on one intentional action that would have us accomplish what we want out of life, which is joy, love, health, success. And that is give up making excuses, give up telling your story, give up reasons why, and see what happens next.
It's a great challenge. David, what is the name of the book?
The name of the book is The Power of Asking What?
How can people find the book?
Overcome Your Challenges and Fears, a conversation for mindset in action. You can find the book by going to Amazon.com. My name is David Kinigson, and you can see all my books up there. And I'm available on social media, so anyone who wants to reach out can reach out to me. And I even often send out signed copies.
So the best way to reach you is through social media?
Social media, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram.
Just type in your name?
Yep, and I also am putting the finishing touches on davidkinigson.com, which talks about my books and my classes, my conversational coaching, and all the different things that I'm up to.
Here the camera, so it's in the YouTube channel. So we will have links to your social media handles on our show notes and for the Apple Podcast, and also on our YouTube channel as well. To our listeners, I highly recommend you read this book. I read it twice. You'll get a lot out of it, especially now during the holidays, and you're looking for the year's resolutions. You will want to get this book. It'll certainly start your 2025 in the right way. David, thank you very much for being a part of the show. Can you stay a little bit more till we can do another one?
Yes, I can, and I want to thank you. You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me as a guest. It's really been a great conversation. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.